Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live from New York. And tonight we would like to join and greet all of our people on Instagram. This is a maiden voyage and an attempt. We'll be fully operational on Monday, but we wanted to see if we were getting through and if we have the right picture. So everything is the same except one more addition, Instagram. Tragically and horribly, the war in Israel goes on, and from all that we can tell, is going to very, very shortly escalate. If we, just to get you acclimated to where we are and what's going on, there is a map of Israel. Then you can see where the West Bank is. This is where most of the activity is, where it says West Bank in that yellow portion. It was from there that last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember we did a special on Saturday, last Saturday, without warning and without any apparent foreknowledge on the part of the Israelis, the Palestinian Authority arm called, the map. Okay, here we are. The Palestinian Authority, their militant arm called Hamas, but I do not accept that this is a war that is just Hamas. This is a war between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and the proxy, if not the director of it, is Iran. So that's the war we're talking about. Let's not further complicate all of the fiction that's been used in the Middle East by calling the war what it is not. It is not a war between Israel and Hamas. It's a war between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, which seeks to become an independent country. And I guess gave us every reason humanly possible why it should not be an independent country over the last 4 or 5 days. So there they are, the little Palestinian Authority, right over here. You see them right there? Okay.
Push it up a little bit.
Up a little that way?
The map. And straighten it just a tad bit, Mayor.
All right.
Just to make it straight. There you go. Look at
So
that.
that's where it is right there.
See this map, Mayor? You can look at it on the screen here.
Yep, you can see it right there as the West Bank. It's across the West Bank that the Hamas terrorists came. It turns out now, when we now have evidence of this, they came with a very highly planned and sophisticated attack, and that word is applicable. Although I thought originally it was being used loosely. Many of the dead soldiers have now been found in possession of planned out maps that would lead them right to kibbutzim and to civilian neighborhoods. So the idea that civilians were not killed as a casualty, as a unfortunate situation because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or being used to be killed the way Hamas does. Civilians were killed because Hamas went in search for them with intelligence they brought with them, of which a great deal has now been amassed by the Israelis. More than this, but I guess the one that I've seen are the maps. So an individual terrorist were given a map that would lead them to a particular kibbutz. In some cases, some of those kibbutzes were completely annihilated, men, women, and children. A few fought them off, actually. One that they have a plan for actually fought them off completely, which is a great credit to their preparedness. But one had an individual militia of its own, and the other didn't. Interesting thing. And of course, Israel is not a country with a Second Amendment. So it's not a country in which, by and large, the civilian population is armed. They probably have a few more arms than would be normal because the military is armed, and a lot of the military lives at home. At certain portions of their engagement as soldiers, they live with their parents. I mean, these are 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, and a lot of their training, they don't live in a barracks. They live at home, and they're traveling the buses, carrying their machine guns, which of course helps. But they're not in the in the villages, and the villages are largely not armed unless they went ahead and did it. Now, the background of the kibbutz was a socialist, almost communist background, and pacifist at that. Even when Israel fought for independence, there was a certain tension, and then finally all the kibbutzes came in very, very loyally, but it didn't happen originally. And they're more naive, let's say, than the average Israeli, and they're very peaceful. So it was a heck of a target to pick. And never before in all of the attacks have people focused on the villages and the civilians. Civilians got killed, but civilians got killed because they were in the way. In this case, I think soldiers got killed if they were in the way. So this was clearly a terrorist attack. Anything else, calling it anything else, would be one of the big lies of this century. So now, if we take a look at a more detailed map of, if we take a look at a more detailed map of Gaza, which is namely this one, what we see is a blown up version of the Gaza Strip.
Other way.
Of the Gaza
You got
Strip.
it right.
Now we got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's the Gaza Strip. That shows you with those arrows where the terrorists came across. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, spanning pretty much from north to south the entire Gaza Strip, and those are some of their targets. Some of those are the kibbutzim that I was discussing that were attacked. So now just reverse that. Right now, as I speak, it would be what in Israel? What time in Israel, Justine, who's going to be on very shortly?
Let me check.
It's the morning, probably.
3 in the morning.
It'll be 3 in the morning.
In Jerusalem.
Okay.
7 hours.
What time is it right now?
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So right now on that long border that you see, the dark color is Gaza. The lighter color is the state of Israel. You can see how the Hamas terrorists came across. Hey, reverse those arrows. Just reverse them. On that border is around, 300,000 have been called up. I doubt that all 300,000 will be used for this invasion because they do have to protect the northern part of Israel where there are attacks going on with Hezbollah and attacks going on from even Syria. Israel has taken some preventative action in both places. They've actually bombed 2 of the airports in Syria to make it impossible for them to be used for military purposes. So Israel has taken advantage, it looks like, this period of time to try to anticipate what is going to happen now when they go about. And what's the goal of this war? The goal of this war is to end Hamas. Israel will judge its success in this war if at the end of it there is no longer a Hamas. That is a hell of a goal and a necessary one. The only goal that I would suggest maybe, but probably I'm wrong about this, and I'm not a military expert, I might have considered skipping Hamas and going right to Iran. Why deal with the middleman? This is an Iranian war, very much encouraged by our president and his actions. And I'll explain that to you in a moment. But possibly sometime this morning or tomorrow, you will see, and I'm going to guess they would use about 100,000 for an initial invasion, about 100,000 Israeli troops cross that border and attempt to destroy Hamas. It'll be bloody because Hamas has been ready for this and its Palestinian Authority for years. I'm sure there are booby traps. I'm sure there are many, many obstacles placed in their way. And I'm sure they're going to have terrible casualties. But I'm also sure, in talking to people, that this isn't a war with any degree of doubt, like sometimes we have in going to war. They're going to war for their survival. Hamas demonstrated that to them when Hamas started killing their children and young women, and not only that, beheading them. And they, in essence, invited this. They invited their own destruction. And now the question is, can Israel carry it out? And how much broader will it become? Will Hezbollah in the north get involved, which is more strongly armed and more effective than Hamas? And therefore, Israel will have to fight a two-front war. Not the first time they've done it, but against a much more armed and again, use the word sophisticated military force in Hezbollah. Question is, how can the United States help? Well, we've put at least 2 aircraft carriers in the area. We have moved in special forces to assist in the extraction rather of Americans. I would add to this that I would recommend to the president, wouldn't recommend it to Biden because he'd start crying if I recommended it, but I would recommend it to a real president that we consider taking over the obligation of rescuing our hostages, that we tell Hamas to release them now, or they'll be dealing with America, because we don't leave our people on the field, and we don't let you mess around with Americans. And if we also bring back some of the Israeli hostages, all the better. They're our best friend. But in the task of going in there to get our hostages, nothing's going to stand in our way. And you want to match with us? Come on. But that's what's missing in this president, and that's why we're having this war, because he doesn't know how to talk like that. This is Biden's war. This would not take place if we had a real president who put America first. And I don't just mean Donald Trump. I mean either one of the Bushes or certainly Ronald Reagan. They could have had this war with them, didn't. Same thing with Ukraine. That war wouldn't have happened. Do I need to prove it to you? Putin invaded 3 times. Once under Bush, Georgia. Once under Obama, Ukraine. And once under Biden, Ukraine. One time he didn't invade, with the president that might respond. And same thing here. If they thought that America might have gotten engaged in this would not have happened. And I think America has every right to get engaged, to take out those Americans. How dare they touch Americans? How dare these terrorists touch Americans? The world's got to be taught that. You keep your hands off Americans. Because you touch Americans, you're going to deal with the single best special forces in the world. Take no prisoners until we get our people back. That's what a president should be saying, not, can you imagine when they see him? We got to get by with it, and we will. We will. We'll find a way. We'll find a way through this. But damn it, Biden, go get the Americans. Grow up and be a man. Don't let them take Americans, you idiot. And Blinken, very fine words. But why don't you tell that guy you work for, go get the Americans? They've been taken hostage too damn long now. You want another Jimmy Carter? You act swiftly, quickly, give them 24-hour notice, then go in on the 15th hour. I have to teach you how to run a country or an army? Biggest mistake in American history was the election of 2020. It hasn't even completed its first term, and it's the biggest mistake in American history. Just go ask the Ukrainians. If they thought about it, they'd realize had Biden not been elected, they'd be alive. So would all the Israelis. Well, you have a New York college student who's been captured by Hamas. His name is Omar Nutra. He's an Israeli-American citizen. He's born in New York. He was captured by Hamas along the Israel-Gaza border, which is we just looked at. And he was serving in the Israel Defense Force. And he's being held now. We don't know exactly how many hostages. There are 120 to 150 hostages. We don't know how many hostages have been taken that are American, which is another complete breakdown of American security, of American intelligence. People are complaining about the breakdown of Israeli intelligence. That's fair, although I don't know it would make sense to do it right now. They've got a lot of questions have to be asked here. But what about our intelligence? We didn't pick this up. I think the intelligence services spend their time doing political things for Biden, and obviously they did not pick this up. And now we don't know how many hostages they have. Not even an estimation. I hope that's a mistake. I hope that is false intelligence. I pray to God that it is, because if we don't have a sense of how many Americans were taken, aside from the one that I mentioned, and we don't have a sense of where they are, then even the greatest evacuation, keep confusing the two, force can't do its job because it's done based upon facts and planning. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have Justine Murray with us, who is actually had quite a day today. And she's going to tell us about it, from the morning where she challenged these bullies to the evening when she went and took a look at a rally. She'll be with us when we get back. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now.
Did it work?
All right, we're live.
Sometimes it takes a bit.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. And you all know Justine. And Justine is with Newsmax. And tell us, I think a lot of people know about this already because they saw it online, because it made quite a stir. But tell us what you did, what you did this morning.
So yesterday, my office, my team, we were pulled into a meeting about how to handle security issues for today's supposed jihad day. And my boss told me that because I commute from New Jersey and because I'm Jewish, that, if I don't want to come in, if I feel unsafe, I don't have to. And I almost broke down. It was the first time this week, and it's been a very emotional week for all Jewish people and a lot of freedom-loving Americans.
Of course it has been. Of course.
And it was the first time this week I almost started to break down because the idea of living in fear and staying home because the people that want to destroy Western civilization and everything that made us free, the people who have invaded this country and who want to see Americans live in fear, to the idea of giving them a win, it just infuriated me.
Of course it is.
And the people who warned me all week to not wear my star, they're very well meaning. My own parents told me, please don't wear your star. Please be careful. Please don't go on the subway. But this morning I had it. I
Now,
said,
how often do you wear the star? Because I've seen it.
yeah,
How often?
every day.
I didn't realize you wore it every day.
I have 2 stars. So one is from Israel.
Right.
One is from a little town called Sfat. And I went there on birthright actually, I think 4 years ago. And it was my very first Star of David that I owned by myself. And I wear that every day. And when I'm wearing like kind of an outfit like this, I'll wear my bigger star because it looks prettier. But growing up, my mom never let me have a star of my own because when she grew up, she was taught that you must hide your Jewish identity.
Oh,
And she was afraid.
of course. Well, what a terrible thing to have in America, right?
It's exactly. And here in America, this is
We were talking about America. She was told that about America.
even here.
Yeah.
But this was back in the day.
Yeah.
But America has progressed so much. America and Israel are the best countries for Jews. The best
country for anybody.
Yes, and that too, for anybody.
For anybody, for Jews, for blacks, for Italians, for Germans, for anybody, Asians, Hispanics.
Yeah. And I told my mom, this is ridiculous. But what I guess I didn't realize then that she had realized is that Jew hatred is always cool. It's always trendy.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, there have been periods of time in my life when I thought it was over.
Yeah.
So my history with it as a child, I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood. By the time I was 7 that was Jewish, Italian, and Irish. And so my friends were a mixture of all, a third, and a third. And there was some anti-Semitism, but stupid anti-Semitism. Yeah. And so I knew about anti-Semitism, and I've always been a historian, so I know the Holocaust. But the thing that changed me forever was going to Israel in 1985 under the auspices of the Jewish community. Oh, I can't remember the complete name of it, but it's a very, very famous organization. They took people to Israel so you would learn about it. But I also at the time was preparing for a case to extradite a Nazi. So I used the time in part for the trip, and I learned all about Israel. I was there for 8 days, and I also did research.
Right.
And the person who helped me was a young minister named Bibi Netanyahu. And we became lifelong friends. And at the same time, Ehud Olmert, who later became the mayor, he was elected mayor of Jerusalem on the same day I was elected mayor of New York.
Incredible.
And so we became very close friends. And I went there several times during attacks to help him with morale,
right,
which I didn't have to do. I mean, they had great morale. So I'm very close to Israel. And it's like my second home. And I've even passed myself off as half Jewish in order to get into the White House, the White House Hanukkah party, because the secretary wouldn't give me a ticket because I had a ticket to the Christmas party. Still, you could only have one ticket. So I told her, didn't you know I was half Jewish? And she said, no, I didn't know that, Mayor Joe. I said, how'd you think I became mayor? She said, oh, she actually, I think, has it written somewhere. I'm probably getting indicted for this now. She probably has it written somewhere that I'm a half Jewish. I mean, I was just kidding her because I was very popular in the Jewish community. Got a tremendous vote there. And a lot of people will say Giuliani is Jewish. And I was kidding her. Then I realized she took it seriously. So she wrote it down, and I probably should have told her to change it. But in any event, I thought it was gone many different times. My gosh. First time I went through Yad Vashem in 85, I said, this can never happen again. If you don't cry going through Yad Vashem, you don't cry.
Yep. It's very brutal to go in there. I went into
Tell them what Yad Vashem is. I mean, so everybody knows.
Yad Vashem is the Holocaust Museum in Israel. And then you also have a Holocaust Museum. I went to the Holocaust Museum in Poland. I went on a trip to visit Auschwitz.
Oh, Auschwitz. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
They also had a Holocaust Museum there.
Yeah.
I would say the Holocaust Museum in Poland, the Holocaust Museum in DC are actually more emotional than Yad Vashem.
Really, you did?
Yeah.
The one in Israel. First of all, it was the first one I've ever gone to, and my knowledge of what happened was half or a third of what it is now. Yep. So you know what really got me in Yad Vashem? At the very end, when you see the number of Jewish people in a country before, and a number of Jewish people in the country after, like Poland, a couple million or whatever the heck it was, or 700,000, and it's down to like 400. You say to yourself, I mean, not all of them, of course, were killed. A lot of them were 6 million, but a lot of them also fled. Yeah. You know what made me feel good? It's really the weirdest things that makes you feel good. The number in Italy was just one of the smallest. The number of Jewish people who died in Italy was the smallest. And then when I became mayor, I met a man who was saved by an Italian family. Actually, he's a very famous man, Ray Harding, who was the head of the Liberal Party.
That's incredible.
And he endorsed Mario Cuomo once, and he endorsed me once. And he said he was repaying his debt to Italy because Italy saved his life. But Italians had a much better recovery system. And a good deal of Italy opposed Hitler and didn't agree with Mussolini and hated Mussolini. Right. So they had a very strong underground. So I walked out thinking, oh, well, gee, my Italian heritage is a little better. And then I found out that really the country that saved the most Jews was Albania. Albania ended up with a larger Jewish population after the war than before, because they brought Jewish people in.
It's really incredible when you figure out, you go back and you think, okay, what are the countries that really did us dirty, and what are the countries that actually were a little bit better, even though they were still taken over by evil at the time. But that being said, Jews and Italians, especially here in New York, we have such a close bond, and we have so much in common, especially.
But the strangest, this as well as I do, of the anti-Semitism in Europe, of course, was pervasive, including in France. The Dreyfus case was the key part. But it probably was worse even in Eastern Europe than Germany. And Germany was considered one of the places, maybe even more than England, where Jewish people made advances. And if I've read, many times that at the turn of the century, right, if they could have predicted where this would have happened, they'd have predicted it would more likely happen in England than in Germany, because or France rather than Germany, and it happened in Germany. But now in Germany, the demonstrations we had today, illegal in Germany.
I saw that. Which is interesting because I'm a huge free speech proponent.
But it's not free speech. They allow other demonstrations. They do not allow anti-Semitic demonstrations.
It's because
of their reaction.
Yeah. And I understand the sentiment, but even with evil Hamas supporters, nasty college students who claim to support Hamas, I still believe in free speech.
I agree with you completely.
Even for discussing.
Only thing I don't agree with is that they don't want to be identified.
That's the funny thing. Yeah,
a bunch of cowards. I mean, I know it's enormously controversial for me to support Ronald Reagan. Gee, I've lost millions as a result of supporting Ronald Reagan. And I've been offered the opportunity to back off 1,000 times. Screw you.
I'm guessing it applies to Ronald Reagan.
I support him even the more.
Trump, right?
What?
I probably applied to Reagan a little bit too, but you're also referring.
Oh,
to
no,
President
no,
Trump.
no, Trump. I mean, much worse, or being MAGA. When they say, you can't be MAGA, I'm ultra MAGA. I'm MAGA on steroids. I'm not ashamed of what I believe. The New York Times may make me out an alcoholic, a bum. They write horrible things about me. The defamation from Biden that I was a Russian from Biden, calling me a Russian agent. Hell with you. I am for Donald Trump.
But
Okay, they're afraid to say they're for Hamas. We'll show that later. And these students who don't want to be identified. Of course, an employer should know that you support Hamas. Hamas is a very well recognized, certified international terrorist group. If you're stupid enough or mean enough or vicious enough to support such a group, I want to know it before I let you into my house or my business.
The funny thing is that when I went to the pro-Palestine rally today, everyone refused to condemn Hamas. I also asked people, well, what about Hamas killing babies, burning babies alive, and murdering and raping women? They pretended it didn't even happen. It was like denying the Holocaust. And a couple of years ago, I actually interviewed people at Syracuse University, an old professor. She supported Hamas. I asked her, do you support Hamas? And she goes, yes, I do. They do a very good job. It was incredible to see. And sometimes I wonder, you think, okay, do these people know what Hamas is, or have they been brainwashed? Because I just can't comprehend that someone would support someone here in America, in this country, would support such acts of evil, would support a genocidal terrorist organization. But at the same time, you have these young militants that are taught in college by any means necessary. And this is the same ideology peddled through the Black Lives Matter.
But we know now that people who support Trump are persecuted.
Yep.
I mean, I have a case with a high school student. They tried to destroy her. You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Because she had a Trump sign. It wasn't even a big thing. There are scores of these cases. People who support Trump, support MAGA, they persecute the hell out of them. And you know now that it's going to happen. But I don't see us hiding like they are. I don't see us complaining that employers may take our pictures. I know that employers won't employ me because I support Trump,
right,
because they're a bunch of prejudiced bums. But I really believe strongly in what I'm doing. I believe I'm saving America.
Exactly.
They can't really believe it if they're hiding like that, like a bunch of little cowards. If they're hiding behind masks and they're complaining that didn't they have that bus going around Harvard showing the pictures of
you have doxing.
Oh my God! They showed my picture. I didn't really mean to support Hamas. I didn't really mean it. Not me. Please, I want a job.
It's coming right back to bite them. That's the funny thing. So in 2020, during all the George Floyd riots, there was actually a national campus campaign on every college campus, student groups would form social media pages to dox professors and students that they believed were racist, like with no proof. They would just like make up these things. And of course, for the most part, it was because they were conservative leaning and they would release the names.
That's the first thing they call you. You're a racist.
I was called that today.
I've been called a racist so often, it's absurd. And I realize most of the people who call me racist are racist.
That's
because they assume because I'm white that I'm prejudiced against other people. I'm not. So that's racism. The color of my skin tells them that I'm something. Well, that's racism. They don't know me.
Exactly. But they're such hypocrites because now they're whining, oh, free speech, we're being doxxed. Yet this whole time they're the ones who support putting Trump supporters, putting Catholics on FBI watch lists. They're the ones who want to raid people's homes for who they vote for.
They're prosecuting Trump and me for exercising our First Amendment rights to protest an election.
But they're angry when
we weren't protesting for a terrorist group that killed children. We were protesting an election, but we're being prosecuted by a communist-oriented prosecutor who also is a fool in Georgia. I mean, you see a comparison between those two things? So Trump is being prosecuted because he believes that the election in Georgia was stolen. I'm being prosecuted because I know it was stolen. I can show you how it was stolen. They don't want to see it, but I can show you. It's like the guy that Ted interviewed today who wanted to ask him about Hamas. He didn't want to say, I don't want to talk about Hamas. I don't want to hear about Hamas.
The cowards.
Yeah.
But
It's a terrible thing. I mean, it really is. So, Ted, shall we take another break? Our QUX, a wonderful QUX commercial. And don't forget to send your $11 in to Tunnel the Towers. You need law enforcement. This is the time to support them. Ted?
I'm playing it.
Oh, so
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
toast ready.
All right, we're on.
Did they just have the QUX commercial or the
Yes.
Balance of Nature?
QUX.
Oh, should I have done the Balance of Nature commercial first? Well, we'll do the Balance of Nature commercial at the end, but I'll take my pills now because I need them.
Well, let folks know to get their Balance of Nature so they can partake in our Balance of Nature minute starting next week,
Next week, we're going to have a
8:30
Balance of
every day.
Nature minute,
8:30.
and we're going to try to
bottom
figure out we'll try to figure out some prizes for it. But this is Balance of Nature. So you take them like this. I'm going to take all four at once to show you how tough I am.
It gives you
It helps to
superpowers.
have a little Italian water.
How long was your clip? You know.
Take this. Just take this. Let's go like this. If you get Balance of Nature, you order these here, you're going to get 35% off if you go to balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy. If you get it down to about here, right here, it can do many, many things for you. Most important thing that it does is it gives you your fruits, it gives you your vegetables, which is what you're trying to get when you take all those damn supplements, and it'll give it to you because you probably don't have enough fruit and vegetables in your diet. And this gives you a tremendous amount of energy. It does me, and it helps. It's an antioxidant. Oh my goodness, so many things. Well, we'll play the commercial a little later, but I was a little bit anxious to take them because I want to make sure I'm peppy.
They give you super strength to fight Hamas.
I'm ready to go. I tell you though, I've had this dream occasionally that I used to get it after September 11 that I went and engaged with them.
Yeah.
Wish I was a little younger. Well, actually, I think older people should go. You're nearer death. You don't have that many years. So why don't you go and shoot these bad?
Hey, we're not
Yeah, they
on,
are.
We're not regulated by the FCC.
Yeah, we're not going to get
Okay, shoot
bleeped.
these bastards. That's what I
There.
wanted to say. I mean, these are, look, if you kill one of them, you're probably saving a child.
That's-
Sometime in the next 5 years, they're going to come back and do the same thing, unless you get rid of them. That's why Israel had to make a very difficult decision. And I hope they stick with it. They got to eliminate them, or they're going to die,
Wipe them out.
or their own people are going to die. You got to make a choice between your own family and them. And then who doesn't make it for your own family? Unless there's something wrong with you, you're going to make it for your own family.
The mess up thing is that they try to peddle this both sides BS. And anyone who peddles both sides in this, when the fact that Jews are being murdered again, this all started with a pogrom. A pogrom is an attempt to ethnically cleanse. It's a massacre against a particular identity group, and usually Jews. This is what happened. This is what Hamas planned for 2 years.
Yeah.
And with the help of our taxpayers
And the direction of Iran. I mean, Iran is involved in this 100%, and the Biden administration is lying about it because the Biden administration is in love with Iran. So the $6 billion, the idea of whether they get the money or not is almost irrelevant. The idea that we gave it to them is important because it told us deep down who our real friend is. So suppose we found out that some group saw you today and they put out a contract to kill you, Justine, and I'm your friend.
they issued a fatwa.
Yeah, and then I found out that the group had some money frozen. And I went ahead and I released $1 million to that group that wants to kill you. And then I go up to you and I say, "You're my friend, Justine."
Oh,
Do
sure.
you really feel like I'm your friend?
That sounds like a
Do
mafia
you really
tactic.
feel like I'm your friend? Or do you feel like I'm a dirty, stinking, conniving weasel? Dirty, stinking, conniving weasel, which describes our president. That's what he did. How can he say he supports Israel and send $6 billion? And plus, he sent more than that in the last few years
250.
by loosening up on the sanctions.
His inaugural,
He sent them a fortune.
initially it was 250 million. That was the inaugural amount sent, and more and more and more and more. And he restored funding to the Palestinian Authority, and they have a program called it's the pay to slay program, but they call it the Palestinian Martyrs Fund. What it really is that they pay Hamas terrorists and their families if they are convicted of murdering Jews. So all those people who burnt alive and murdered Jews this week, they will receive a lifetime salary for doing that. They're encouraged to do it. And it's thanks to our taxpayer money that goes to that. President Biden recently sent them, and even more, he sent them $1 billion.
And his pal, the real boss, Obama, sent them 100 and something million in cash, right? Well, 71 million in one transaction. I think altogether about 140 million. And he sent it to them in cash, which means he knew it was going to terrorists. What other country, you send it by wire, right? The reason they were able to stop it, it went by wire through Qatar. And luckily, it got stuck in the Qatar bank and we were able to stop it. And Qatar, of course, does play both sides against the middle. But let's step back for a second and realize there's advantages to some countries in times of hostility. They play both sides against the middle because you have somebody to negotiate with.
Exactly.
So I don't know how long the money is going to stay frozen. Eventually, Biden's going to slip it because he's in love with them, with Iran, and he hates Israel. You cannot have given them money if you don't hate Israel. How can you give money to a country that supports terrorism and openly and avowedly is not a phony like you? I mean, you got to at least say, we know what they stand for. They're not confusing us. They stand for the elimination. Honestly, they stand for the elimination of the Jewish people, not just Israel.
Exactly.
They would like to eliminate Jews all over the world.
First, they want to finish the job on Jews, and this is in the original,
And then us.
and then us, and then
The rest of us.
Western civilization. Israel is the birthplace of Judeo-Christian values, and the reason why Islamofascists and these campus socialists and these dilettantes in academia, the reason why they want to destroy Israel is because they want to destroy Western values. And
you're 100% correct.
it starts with the Jews, but it doesn't stop
No,
there.
absolutely not. And people don't. Some people don't get that.
As Saddam Hussein said, he called Israel Little Satan and America Big Satan. And the goal is to wipe out what they call Little Satan, because Little Satan, Israel, is the beacon of democratic, of Western hope in that hellhole in the Middle East, which is, it's a hellhole. It's an uncivilized hellhole. And the Jewish people, they're civilized. They represent Western civilization. And that's when
How did it, first time I went to Israel, Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, was in the hands of the Israeli government, and I went to the Church of of the Nativity. I had communion there with Peter Vallone, the Speaker of the City, the Democratic Speaker of the City Council, and I can now admit, since we're out of office, that we were very close friends. But we pretended to debate with each other. And one of the reasons the city ran is because we were close. We were close.
Right.
It wasn't like this ridiculous fighting that they do. But we had communion together. And it was a beautiful church. I do not know in the breakup that took place why they gave I guess it was in what they claim is their territory. But every Christian in the world should have begged to keep it in Israeli hands. Because the whole place has become, they started urinating in the church, and they started defecating in the church, and the church has fallen apart. They took nuns as hostages. I do not understand how Christians didn't fight, including the Pope, to keep that thing in Israeli hands and out of the hands of the animals who destroyed it.
the truth is, I call them animals this week, but they're humans in the worst possible
Yeah,
form.
they are. Of course,
And
they're
we
humans. They're
see-
humans who are evil.
Exactly.
We use the word animal to convey, like when Bush called MS-13 animals.
Right.
MS-13, what he was actually reacting to a situation where they came into Long Island, and in order to establish their bona fides, they cut a child's head off.
It's just
Well,
like they're
I'm
doing
sorry.
this.
You get all upset about him calling it an animal. There's something wrong with you, not him.
The thing, like these people are worse than animals. This is what we saw with Nazi.
Of course, they're worse. Most animals are nice, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want. When I think of an animal, I think of my little dog Theodore. He's
Yeah.
the cute.
Yeah,
fluffy
well,
little
my
thing.
Theodore.
What a great name for the dog. Theodore.
But they're like, this is
That I never thought of that. We should stop doing that. So now Trump is going to get in trouble when he calls them animals for defaming animals. It's true. They defame animals. Animals kill for necessity, to eat. They don't kill just for the hell of it, to make some kind of a weird, perverted point about a perverted version of their religion.
humans are naturally monsters when we're not civilized. And what we're seeing is uncivilized society, and they're evil. They're monsters. But unfortunately, that's human instinct can be evil, and we've seen that with the Holocaust. And we're also seeing it here. And it's the Western civilization that has quenched that. At least for the most part, we work every day to suppress.
Well, one of the things that used to be the case with our great universities, like our Ivy League university, is they teach Western civilization. Columbia had a world famous course on Western civilization. That's ended a while back. And now I wonder if parents really shouldn't sue, let's say Harvard, for the tuition back over the last 20 or 30 years. They're a bunch of stupid idiots. They're marching around, those Harvard students, saying that Israel occupies the Gaza Strip. Occupies. Get the occupation out. Did anybody ever tell them? I know they don't study history at Harvard anymore. And to the extent that they do, it's written by the New York Times or Black Lives Matter or critical race theory. But Israel, on its own, withdrew from Gaza, not yesterday, not the day before, in 2005, morons. Like if you read a history, or if you had a history book. Oh, I don't even think they teach current events at Harvard. Or do they teach you how to read a newspaper? Well, of course, maybe the newspapers don't have it in it.
they teach you how
To be woke.
they teach you how to fight the system without actually learning about the system.
So you should get a degree. Like it should be woke 101, woke
102.
102, woke, and then you should be able to master in woke.
They have that.
I'm a doctor of woke.
That's called gender studies.
Yeah, right. Right. Gender studies, so you can learn how to mutilate children before they know what they're doing.
The funny thing is about Harvard, so I actually have this whole list of First Amendment violations.
I don't think they're well educated.
They're
I listen to them and they don't know basic things about history that people that go to just regular universities, well, they used to learn. I don't know, maybe the regular universities are terrible too.
You know what they're educated on? They're educated on propaganda, anti-Western, pro-communist.
Marxist, yeah.
Yep. They're educated on that, but they don't even know the origins of that. They only know what they're being spoon-fed by their professors, and they don't do the work to try to counter at any point. They actually they recently fired, and I have a whole list. They fired a couple of professors a couple of years ago in 2019. In 2020, oh, this was a big one. Who knows Kyle Kashuv?
Mm-hmm.
They revoked his acceptance to their school over social media comments that he made when he was 16.
What did he do? What did he say?
He said some things that were deemed anti-Semitic, and he's Jewish. And of course, he used like slurs, like actual slur. But as it was actually, I remember watching the story, and I don't even think it was on social media. It was in some stupid group chat. But meanwhile, these same people say that they're for free speech when they let Hamas supporters on campus. They claim to be free speech absolutists only when it comes to Jew hatred and hatred of America. That's the only time these colleges
Jew hatred and hatred of Trump.
and hatred of Trump. Those are the only
Hatred of Trump suspends the Constitution.
Yeah.
I know that because of my experience this week, which I'm not allowed to talk about. But
Videos are ready.
the Constitution has an exception, which I didn't know, which means none of its provisions apply if you support Trump.
Oh.
You can have your law firm raided. You can have your iCloud account taken. If you have a hearing, you're not allowed to put in evidence that supports you. It gets stricken or not paid attention to or deminimized. Even if it's, overwhelmingly favorable to you, or they hide it and give you doctored tapes, and that's okay. They can do that. And then if they fight with you over a word, you're a liar.
Exactly.
That's essentially what goes on if you're a Trump supporter, and they will not admit it and they won't see it. Some of them see it and want it that way. And some of them, I think the vast majority are like sheep. I mean, it's like what we're going to see now about what you and Ted went through. Ted?
That's right. So let's start out with a video that Justine posted this morning to her X account.
This is what
This follows, of course, announcements from many suggesting that people do not travel to work today.
Yep.
And so let's play Justine's response to that warning.
I'm heading to the subway. I just got into New York from Jersey. I'm going to work. But apparently, I'm not supposed to go to work today because some 4th century brother husbands want me dead. But guess what? I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been told this week by well-meaning people I should take off my star. I'm not doing that because I'm not going to live my life in fear, and neither should you. The Islamofascists and their media ilk, which is basically their propaganda arm, they want us to stay home today. They want us to be afraid to be free Americans. And they win if we do that. So don't comply with that. Am Yisrael Chai, and God bless America. So I'm heading to the subway. I just got into New York from Jersey. I'm going to work. But apparently, I'm not supposed.
Thank God for you, Justine.
Thank you.
Thank God for you. Somebody has to do that. And look, it's perfectly normal to be afraid when television is filled yesterday with this is going to be a jihad. This is going to be a pogrom. Everybody, every Islamic extremist should go out and kill Jews or beat up Jews or destroy temples or synagogues. Perfectly natural to take some, but it's another thing to let them know, you can't affect us. That was my feeling after September 11th. That's why I asked people to come back to work right away. In fact, some people criticized me for pushing it too fast. And maybe I did, I don't know, but I amended it then to say, well, it depends on how you feel. But I really would like it if you'd come back to work. I remember Broadway didn't want to come back, and I sent the police to pick up some of the Broadway cast.
Wow.
Because they didn't know how to get into New York, and it was hard to get in. So I said, I think this is important enough in terms of public safety and getting our morale back that we send the police. So I made the deal with some of the owners to say, okay, I'll go pick up. If this one's afraid, I'll go pick them up. I'll get somebody to pick them up. And by that time, I had extra police, like I had Chicago police and Florida police, and I had the National Guard. So I wasn't like, maybe the first couple of days I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I pushed baseball to come back quickly, and I pushed everybody to come back quickly because I really thought it was important that we lift our eyes up and start looking at the future without forgetting what happened. Exactly. And I think the people who died, at least I know the ones who were my people meaning the fire and police, and that's exactly what they would want. They wouldn't be sitting there with their head down. They'd be doing what their brothers did in putting up that flag right away.
Exactly.
Right away, they put up that flag and said, "Screw you, we're coming back after you."
Don't give them a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has to happen here. This attack has to be one that is never forgotten. It's unfortunate to say that, but it has to be. It has to be one that I'm sure the phony part of the world will condemn Israel for.
They do right now.
Oh yeah, right.
They say, "Oh, Israel is evil because civilians in Gaza are getting hurt." Well, Hamas uses babies, their own babies, as human shields. And there's a video right now where the little children, the hostages from Israel that they took, they're using them as human shields. And they posted this on their own pages, on their own Telegram pages, and people still want to pretend that this didn't even happen. We have photos that show exactly what happened. It's this very reminiscent to the Holocaust, to those horrific photos, gruesome photos from the Holocaust. And it doesn't matter how many times you show it right in their faces, they just completely deny it.
Yeah, it's really. So now what else do you have, Ted?
Let's see. All right, so let's play some
Well,
more.
actually, let's take a short break first so you can get your stuff together.
Balance of Nature.
We got our Balance of Nature coming up.
It's a short one.
I know, but you get a little.
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
Okay, so we'll play now some footage here of today's protest. Mayor, we talked, of course, live on WABC Radio. And the protest today took place on Broadway in Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
A few thousand people, I'd say.
That's it?
That's it.
Would you consider it a small protest?
I would say a large protest, considering a large rally, considering these are people who are unwilling to denounce what are objectively acts of terror. So probably too large, right? Considering what they were there for. But I would, Mayor, compared to what
I
you've
consider
seen,
when you reported to me and you told me the number of blocks, which is about one at best, but 1/20th, maybe 1/30th of the New Year's celebration, I said this isn't much.
Nothing. That's what you said,
and from a mayor's point of view, having handled this wasn't even a protest that would register in terms of heavy difficulties. I mean, you're talking 40, 50,000 before you're going to really start worrying in New York.
And what you're about to see, and maybe Justine can help us. And I kind of know the term. What's the term mitzvah? mean?
A good
A
deed.
good deed.
A good deed.
That's
See, I told you I was half Jewish.
in Judaism, it's really following the Talmud, following the Jewish laws and customs, but it's also, and this is what I learned. I grew up in a Reform synagogue, so we were told it was also a good deed and doing something good for someone else. So
Well,
it's very-
I want to set the scene here. The video will start with a truck passing by the protest with on the side, big words, Israel, it's time for your mitzvah. Or basically, I think they were calling on fellow Israelis to come home or come to the homeland to fight the war. But here we go.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Israel, you can't hide! You committed genocide! How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Hey, Bibi, what do you say? Hey, Bibi, what do you say? Palestine will be free! 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 Palestine!
Every time I see those things, it reminds me of Arafat, who I threw out of the United Nations.
Now I want to play one more for you guys.
He left when I threw him out. They had a camel waiting, and he just took off.
I'd like to hear that story.
All right, we'll play one more.
Threw him out because he was a killer.
Yeah, I'll cover it all. I'm not trying to hide anything.
No, I'm not saying nothing.
How do you feel? How do you feel about this kids too? How you feel about it? I want to cry.
Do you right? Do you like? You don't have.
I want to cry.
No have a food. No have a house. No have a food.
Yeah. Huh? Wait, what?
Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
That's interesting. She doesn't want us talking. You saw that, boy. They wanted to talk to me, and they didn't let them talk to me. They silenced the ones that wanted to have a conversation. Notice how that works, right? Let's try it again. All right, what?
You accept our people to be killed!
Of course not. I don't want anyone dying. I don't want anybody dying. I don't want anyone dying.
You don't want anybody die?
No.
Okay,
nobody.
say that. Why you don't say that?
Life. We all want to live. We all want to live. We want these kids to live.
Okay.
Twist our words! Okay?
Even when Ted's in an argument with these crazy people, you have such a friendly, good demeanor that it's
Well, see, Ted's not a terrorist. Or supporting terrorists.
These people
And
on
he's
the
not
other
supporting terrorists. And the genocide they're supporting, the genocide is on the part of their sponsor, Iran, and they want to wipe out the Jewish people.
they're leaders. They're leaders.
Israel doesn't want to wipe them out.
Look at the photos. Israel isn't going in to Gaza and raping women and cutting the heads off of babies. That's what they're doing. This wasn't about when they say, oh, resistance. It's never about land or resistance or resisting oppression. First of all, they're the colonists. Israel was an act of decolonization. So that whole ideology is BS. The truth to it is that they want to wipe out the Jews. They want to finish the job. It was in Hamas's original charter, which, by the way, Hamas was freely elected by its own Palestinian people.
Well, that's why I say it's a war with the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas. It's not that all the Palestinians are terrorists, but they're being served by a terrorist army. It's like saying the war with Germany was against the SS. Sorry, it was against the German people. They elected Hitler. They supported Hitler. I'm sure a lot of them didn't support him, but he was there. And I have seen polls where most, not all of the Palestinian people hate the Jews. hate
It's-
Israel, hate America.
They're taught from a young age. They're taught
They're
from
taught in school to kill Jewish people.
they have chants. They like make their kids dress up and they arm their young kids like 5-year-olds and they sing these songs about killing the Jew. They in fact their school plays, they act out scenes of killing Jews. Like this is
And that doesn't happen in Israel. Israel doesn't teach kids at 5, 6, and 7 to hate the Palestinians. I mean, they end up ultimately when they're in their late teens going into the military to defend themselves, but they're not taught to aggressively go kill the Palestinian people. So to me, this switch began with Jim Baker in the late 1980s. Reagan had this on the right track. He's a big supporter of Israel. He supported Israel not on domestic political grounds, but on the grounds that it was our best friend. Baker, always suspected of having very, very strong ties with the oil interests, started to switch around our policy. And Bush wasn't strong in resisting it. And then we got into Clinton, and Clinton fell in love with Yasser Arafat. I don't mean in the way he fell in love with some of the others, but he fell in love with Yasser Arafat and just sold out to him completely, to the point where Arafat made a complete fool out of Clinton because at the end of his administration, Clinton offered him everything he wanted, even Jerusalem. And Arafat told him to go to hell because you know what Arafat wanted? He wanted war so he could make money. He wanted hostility so he could get money.
Yeah.
He didn't want it to end. He didn't want the hostilities to end.
of course not.
I mean, I'm not saying this is all of Ukraine, but there are people in Ukraine like that too. They love this idea of war. You think all that cash ends up on the battlefield in a country like Ukraine? Ooh, no way.
That's why Zelensky
I support the Ukrainian people, but I'm not a fool. I know it's the second, third most corrupt country in the world, and Zelensky's patron is one of the most corrupt people in the world. One of the biggest money launderers ever with Prime Bank. So the chance that Zelensky at least knows about it and lets it happen, whether he participates in it or not, I don't know. But he sure as hell doesn't do anything about it. Plus, he's covering up for Biden. He's got evidence that Biden is one of the major criminals of the century, which he's hiding, and so are some of his own people. He's protecting. It isn't only Biden who got bribes; it's his own politicians who got bribes that he's protecting, which means he's a corrupt man.
It's funny because it's actually sad, but we were forced to go full on gung ho for Ukraine when they were invaded. There were no questions asked. If you dare to question it, including now, then you're an evil Putin proponent. I can't begin to count how many Ukrainian flags I still see when I'm jogging down my street all the time. I see Ukrainian flags, houses done. I don't see an American flag. I only see Ukrainian flags. Yet with Israel, when people are actually there's another genocide happening against Jews in the most brutal possible way that you can imagine, we have to peddle both sides. Well, they were asking for it. It's almost like, when God forbid a woman gets raped in the streets. Oh, well, what was she wearing? That's what they do to Israel. Oh, well, Israel, the Jews must have done something wrong in order for them to chop off the babies chop off the heads of Jewish babies. Like, well, they must have, they must have asked for it. And like a domestic violence case. Oh, well, she must have asked for it. But with Ukraine, it's like, oh my God, if you dare to question Zelensky's motives or why he's on fashion magazines with his wife, why does he have the time to travel the world and bloviate? Oh my God, you're like.
Or if you try to find out what happened to the money, there's no audit of the money. I mean, first of all, there's an outstanding $5 billion of foreign aid that went to Ukraine that they've never accounted for. So the idea that they're stealing money isn't it's the reality of Ukraine. Until the day before the war, anybody would tell you it was considered the second most corrupt country in the world. I don't think they know how to do business legally. A few people do, but very, very few. The government certainly doesn't. There isn't a chance in the world with that kind of cash going into Ukraine that the oligarchs aren't stealing it. That doesn't even mean they aren't patriotic. They'll go fight in the street for Ukraine, but they'll steal money at the same time. And they'll deprive Ukraine of half of the money that they need. Plus, they'll impoverish the people of Ukraine by stealing their money. Do you know when the prior government left, they left $800,000 in the bank?
Wow.
So when Bush was shaking down the president of Ukraine, the guy had no money.
Right.
That's why the $1 billion advance by the United States was so important. He had no money. When I say no money, I mean no. They had stolen everything, including Biden's employer, Zlochevsky, who was one of the biggest crooks. He took something like $20 billion. Zelensky's patron took about $30 billion and didn't come back to Ukraine until Zelensky was elected, which will give you an idea of that thing. So before we make Zelensky the second coming of Winston Churchill, you're going to get very disappointed if the facts in Ukraine ever come out and you find out how they're covering up for their own people.
Right.
I mean, it really is. And so now we're going to get into, should the money go, should we equal them? I mean, Biden wants to present a bill where he asks for money for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan all at once. And I think he should be told to go to hell. He should ask for one for Israel. That's the immediate one right now.
It's like the only one right now.
Ukraine, first of all, he doesn't want Ukraine to win because he hasn't given them what they need to win. He gives them lots of cash. They steal half of it. He more than anyone knows you have to put an audit on this. He refuses to do it, even though Congress demands it. That has to be, even the little bit he knows that if you give money to Ukraine, they're going to steal it. He knows that. It's probably the only thing left that he might know. And he doesn't do anything with that money. Now he wants to make sure that he can leverage money for his crooked compatriots by giving money to Israel. I mean, that's disgusting. And Taiwan is another totally separate matter, which should be taken care of. There's no doubt about it. But maybe being maybe saying no to China once in a while, instead of giving up the Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China, like a trader would do, would help.
It's always the countries that are democratic and that support freedom that we throw under the bus under the Biden administration and under Obama, and the worst countries, the world's worst human rights violators like Iran, that we coddle. It's so backwards, but so is everything with the left and with the Democrat.
I may be mistaken, but I think Iran has been on the Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
That we rejoined under Biden. You know, Trump took us out of the Human Rights Commission and stopped giving that phony Red China is part of the Human Rights Commission. And they want to wipe out the Uyghur people. They're wiping out the Uyghur people. I mean, Iran probably has killed more of its own people than any modern country. I mean, they just slaughter their own people.
The UN, I would say the UN should be abolished. It's a total sham. America is the biggest funders of the UN. I work right outside. I work right next to the UN. And they have a whole separate relief agency, UNRWA, for Palestinian refugees. They don't have that for any other.
They have a whole big agency now that, wants the world to allow children to go get themselves all chopped up without telling their parents. And they want to take away the rights of parents, even though it's in their charter that parents have a human right to be guardians of their children until they're 18 years old. It's in the UN charter, but they're trying to undercut that. I mean, they are dominated by Marxist countries. Yeah. Our money is completely used against us there. And the best indication that they're worthless, where are they on this? Did anybody go to the UN?
They held a moment of silence for Palestine.
Well, what do we have them for? We have them so they can come to New York, not pay for their meals, not pay their rent, not pay their tickets, which I used to go crazy over. Every once in a while, rape somebody and get away with it because not every once in a while, more often than you actually realize. Sometime I'll bring out my old police reports and show you how many perverts they send over here. I mean, they created an enormous criminal problem in New York City. Half these countries are crooked, completely crooked. And they come here to make money. They come here to sell their country out because they're crooked. You know what crooked is? They're crooked.
And we have to bow down to them like they're somehow our moral leader. Like, shame on you, Israel. Shame on you, America. That's what they peddle. That's really what
people used to say to me, and I believed it at first until I was mayor for a while. Well, they bring a lot of foreign business to New York. They do bring some. They also cost New York a fortune in security, which the federal government reimburses about 10% of. And I think the balance of getting rid of them, I wanted to put Yankee Stadium there.
I love that idea.
Or a big dome for the Jets. Can you imagine having a Super Bowl on 42nd Street next to the East River? Whoa! We can have one every 5 years. And then we can have concerts there, like nice ones, because they would listen to my rules on how you don't have riots. I mean, I was mayor 8 years. We had no riots, and Bloomberg was mayor. And the first time we had a riot after me was when we got a Democrat mayor back. See, Democrat mayors have riots, not Republicans.
That's true.
Democrat mayors have crime go up. Republican mayors have crime go down. Why the hell you have Democrat mayors is your problem.
People never learn.
Ted is going like that. Now, Ted, you did a lot of work today. Why don't you show us a little more of your work?
Sure. Okay, we'll play another clip,
and then we'll sign off for the week.
Played both the clips I uploaded. Let's go back and hear from, the big thing is where we talked about, the U.S. government has said that they're not using the money on that the money that Iran's getting, none of that, had no connection to this. But we have Iran's own, is this the foreign minister or is this the president?
Which one?
Speaking to Lester
Raisi?
Holt. Yes.
Raisi is the number one guy. The prime minister, he's known as the butcher. That's his nickname.
This money was wrongfully taken from Iran. But what is your expectation of its use? We're told that it's for humanitarian purposes, food and medicine. Do you believe you have the right to use that money in any way that you see fit?
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally, we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
So if I hear you clearly, that it will be used for more than humanitarian purposes in your view?
Humanitarian means whatever the Iranian people needs. So this money will be budgeted for those needs. And the needs of the Iranian people will be decided and determined by the Iranian government.
Well, I mean, Lester Holt should be fired for that. He's sitting there with a mass murderer. Yeah, you know how many of his own people the butcher killed? The guy is he's not just a murderer. He's a Hitler-type murderer. And he's treating him like he's a regular guy. This is what causes the brainwashing and the propaganda and confuses our people and is putting our country in grave jeopardy. I don't know as a human being how Lester Holt could sit there and talk to that man. I mean, I can't tell you. I know all about him. And maybe I feel a little personal about it, because he probably was involved in wanting me killed twice or almost killing me twice. And this is ridiculous. He wanted to blow me up and Mrs. Rajavi and a group of other people at a Muslim New Year's celebration in Albania. The people were caught and they were convicted of it. So I'm not making this up. And then again, a few months later in Paris, except then it was not just me, it was a lot of other people, including Newt Gingrich and Judge Mukasey and Mrs. Rajavi, because she's the head of the main resistance organization that our State Department treats horribly, because they're in love with Iran too. And they treat horribly because our State Department says that the MEK is not powerful. Meanwhile, the government, Raisi, has an order to murder them on sight. Not only that, the Ayatollah has said they're the only organization capable of really displacing us. And our State Department goes around lying to the American people and saying that they're not, they're a terrorist group, they're a joke. I have no idea why they love Iran so much. Iran is the reign of terror is one of the, I don't know if it's equivalent to Stalin and Hitler, but it sounds like it is. I mean,
I think
the
Iran
MEK,
is,
they slaughtered 120,000 MEK members whose pictures, I mean, I have a book with 20,000 of them. Right now, if they suspect you of being MEK, they'll shoot you on the street. A lot of them that they kill aren't even MEK. And I've had a tremendous education on Iran through the MEK because I go to their facility and I get to look inside because they have terrific electronic surveillance, which is why they're being, I think, tortured by the Albanian government now. And of course, the U.S. is doing nothing for them because they don't want to offend Iran. They don't want to offend the Ayatollah, who was another mass murderer.
we're so weak.
This guy got elected probably in a crooked election, rigged by the Ayatollah, because he was the most vicious of the candidates, because the Ayatollah is getting really nervous that the protest may overthrow him. So he's getting, like what happens with any dictator, he's getting more vicious now. So of all the people that have been prime minister, this is probably the biggest killer. And the Ayatollah demanded that he get elected because he feels safe with him, because a couple of years ago, he butchered all kinds of Iranians, including a large number of the MEK people. But he's a expert hitman.
And we just we coddle them. We coddle them.
We put them on national television as if they're serious people.
I think part of it is, as you mentioned before, it's a money thing. You know, we know by now that our president wants to line his own pockets and his family's pockets, but also there's this anti-Western sentiment. We have people in public office who hate us, who want to destroy everything about America. And obviously you can see it more clearly with the squad, with Ilhan Omar and AOC and Rashida, who has the Palestinian flag outside her office and not the American flag.
This is the group that she supports.
Yep. Who refused to condemn Hamas when a reporter asked her, hey, do you at least condemn Hamas? You're raping women and cutting the heads off babies. She refused. She ran away from that reporter.
Like the people ran away from you today when you wanted them to comment on Hamas. Or if they didn't run away from you, the speech police came up and cut them down. And cut them right down.
Anyone that was
just like a good Marxist would do.
Or
communists.
Just like Hamas. No talks. You don't want to talk. They don't want peace. They're showing us that, right? They're not just saying it or telling us. They're showing us. They don't want peace.
Well, they think we're fools, and some of us are.
Bingo. Clearly.
Unfortunately, the current administration is probably the most foolish we've had in American history, which is at the wrong time. And let's hope, God willing, we can get through the next year plus and get a real president who puts America first. I don't even think Biden puts America last. I don't even think he thinks about us. The decisions that he makes are so contrary to our lives and safety that it can't be that he cares about us. But in any event, you are a brave young lady.
Thank you.
I admire courage. And it's what we need to get through this, and loyalty, and an understanding of real values. And Justine has all that. So does Ted. And so do most of you, I'm sure. And let's say a prayer this weekend, for sure, for Israel, our great friend. Let's do it on the base. Let our love of Israel emerge from their friendship with our country. Ronald Reagan used to say about Israel, you have very few friends in the world that are loyal. If you have them, you have to appreciate them and you have to support them. Israel is one of our few loyal friends. We better damn well be loyal to Israel and stop giving money to a nation that wants to destroy them. That's disgraceful, and it should end. So a prayer for Israel, a prayer for the United States, and of course, God bless the United States. We'll see you on Monday. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.